knock the camera over. Oh, I got it. Yeah, you're not, my head's not in the way of it.
I think you did puff your hair.
Oh, wow, we're on. Hey. Good morning, everybody. Did everybody hear me all right? Okay. Thank you for coming out to the Muscatine Community Forum here with your legislators. It is about 9 o'clock on that most revolutionary of all days, March 4th. And I appreciate the one person laugh. Thank you very much. More than I expected. So in any event, we've got your legislators here, and it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to speak with them, to hear from them, to participate in the community. And let me just kind of go over the ground rules because the menu has changed. But basically, what we're going to do is allow the legislators 3 minutes to introduce themselves and say kind of an opening statement. We will then open it up for questions, and since it is we're doing a shorter segment today, only an hour as opposed to an hour and a half in previous years, I'm going to be really kind of tight on the question timeline. So not a place to give a speech, but ask questions. We'll allow you can make a statement and a comment or question in 2 minutes or less, and then the legislators will have 2 minutes to speak. I ask that if you have specific questions, you address it for that legislator. If they are general questions, then we will have the legislators answer as they are able. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Mr. Kaufman to make his opening statement. We'll just move right on down the table.
Okay, good morning. Anybody hear me? No. How about now? Yeah. Yes. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm more interested in your questions, so I won't do much of an introduction, but I'm Representative Kaufman. I represent a little bit more of Muscatine County now, not Johnson County anymore, then a large chunk of rural Scott County, Walcott, Bluegrass, etc. I do serve on a new role now as the Ways and Means Chair, meaning that all things taxation come through my committee versus last year when I chaired the State Government Committee. Looking forward to your questions today. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Representative Taylor Collins. I'm one of the new guys up here. So I have a lot of rural Muscatine County as well as all of the Wisa, parts of Des Moines, and parts of Henry County. So I serve as Vice Chair of Appropriations as well as on State Government, Education, Judiciary, and the Education Appropriations Subcommittee. So looking forward to your questions today, and thanks for all coming out this morning.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Mark Lofgren, and my district changed a lot. Previously, before redistricting, it was half in Scott County and half in Muscatine County. Now I have Wilton, Muscatine, and if you heard closely with Taylor, so we have all the WISA, we all the rural area right up to Burlington, West Burlington. We don't have the city, but the rural, and we go over to Mount Pleasant, and not the city, but the rural area. So I have Taylor Collins, which is one of my House members, and then Mark Cisneros is my other one. And I'm the chair of the Economic Development Budget Sub. I'm the vice chair of local government. I'm on Veterans Affairs, Rules Administration, which has to do with procedures in the Senate. I'm on the full appropriations. I'm on transportations. This is the first time I've been on transportation. I enjoyed that. And then I'm on IPERS, and then the system retirement plans. So anyway, and at some point I hope to be able to go over some of the bills that I've worked on.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Mark Cisneros. District 96 now covers, with redistricting, Muscatine, farmland to the east of us towards Bluegrass, and the community of Wilton. So I'm getting to know lots of people in those new areas, and I'm looking forward to your questions this morning. I just want to touch on a couple of things, since I got 2-3 minutes. We've read in over 600 bills already in the 9 weeks that we've been at the Capitol. Education has taken up, obviously, a lot of that time. A lot of bills have gone through that committee. A couple of those things that we've touched on as a body is pornography, age-appropriate books, curriculum, CRT, social emotional learning, administrators working in the classroom, and ESAs, of course. So those are just a few of the things that we're spending time on up at the Capitol. And so just looking forward to your questions this morning.
I'm on. Happy to work all right. A little bit of technical difficulty. Thank you very much to your legislators. We will start by taking questions now. I see one person already at the podium. If you have questions, please line up. Don't jostle, if you could help it. And I am keeping tight watch on the clock. So the first person at the podium, please state your question or comment.
My question is for Taylor Collins. How might you defend House File 180 in the face of protests from students that believe it will open the doors to increased rates of child abuse?
There's about 500 House files. Could you be specific as far as what the bill does?
The bill makes it so that teachers are not allowed to respect students' gender identity in K through 12 and requires them to be forthcoming with what a student's gender identity is.
I'm sorry, could you state your name too for the record, please?
Natalie Niemeyer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie, for the question. I believe the bill actually has to do with making sure that school districts are not icing out parents when it comes to students who may be suffering from gender dysphoria. What we want to make sure is that parents are the main driver of students. I mean, if the student is suffering from gender dysphoria, I want to make sure that parent knows that's going on so that they can support them. But this business of school districts hiding certain things from parents, that's just totally wrong, and it's contrary to what everything we ran on. What we ran on is empowering parents and making sure that the driver is their child's education.
Thank you. And again, I should say, please state your name as you introduce yourself to the speakers.
I'm Linda Kelty, Muscatine, and basically I want to make a statement and ask a question. I think there are many of us who feel that we are not underrepresented, but unrepresented. And I think there are a number of issues that come up before the House and the Senate that should be ballot issues so that you get a true reading of what the citizenry wants, or that there should be some sort of independent polling situation. I have received responses back from representation that the majority of the people around the state support a particular issue when they talk to them. I find it very difficult to talk to our representation. This is one of the first public forums in a long time, and it seems to me that we need greater communication and greater accountability.
You hear me? Okay, there we go. First of all, thank you for being here. The position of being a ballot, initiative state versus a lawmaking state, Iowa's never been a ballot initiative state. I'm not saying I'm necessarily opposed to that, but we have put a lot of things on the ballot for constitutional issues. So I think that that is one thing. As far as polling has zero impact on my decisions. I will never say that I'm going to base something on how the wind's blowing that day. But I'm out every single Saturday among constituents. I'm out every other day. I'm home among constituents. So I feel like I've got a very good measuring stick on what my folks want, and they keep sending me back. So I feel like I'm representing people.
Well, I might mention as far as forums or public and talking to people. I know this is the first one you've been to, but we've had, let me see, we had the one in Wilton, and I think Bobby and Carrie Grunhig were in West Liberty. And then Taylor and I, even though we don't have Burlington, we go right up to it. So, my gosh, I think we've had 5 or 6 down there. And then in Mount Pleasant, we just had one last Saturday. We have one next week in Mount Pleasant as well. We have some smaller groups, forum type of things that we've had. We had the one in Wapello. We've got the one in Wapello today. So I will say that we've been all over the place. And I know, in fact, I think all of us have. So we try, and we, people get a hold of us and we talk to them. And I think, we're about as accessible as anybody is. That's one thing about being at state level like this is it's kind of an open door type of a thing. We're always out and about, and we care about what people, what their issues are.
Linda, good morning. Good to see you. It's been a while. I just want to remind people that this is not a democracy. This is a republic. And sometimes people get those things confused. And in a republic, it takes work. And the best government is that government closest to you. This is my second term, and I'm still meeting lots of people, and it's part of the enjoyment of the work is meeting people and learning from them. I would like to say that I'm always willing to meet with people in person. In fact, I prefer to meet with you in person. I don't think I've denied anybody a coffee or a lunch, and so I would encourage you to reach out to me in that way. I would much rather speak to you one-on-one and give you more time so that we can get to know each other better. And I will commit to, if this facility is available, I'd be happy to come here in the evenings and speak with a smaller group. So I'm willing to do that kind of thing.
May I ask one more thing? Where are the forums and things announced so that we can all access them? I heard about this kind of by accident.
I will say generally there's at least one a month here in Muscatine. As for announcements, obviously they're taking place all over in various communities. Is Naomi here? Does she have any idea? It's there every month, right?
So our announcements were through the chamber newsletter, of course the journal, and all the social media.
Thank you.
For those who couldn't hear, chamber announcements, the Muscatine Journal and social media. Thank you, Ms. Kelty. Next questioner, please.
I want to start with saying our liberties are prized and our rights we shall maintain.
I'm sorry, it's very difficult to hear.
Good morning.
Thank
My
you.
name is A.C. Overla. My pronouns are they, them. Our rights are prized, our liberties we shall maintain. A quick comment to Mr. Taylor's. I have no contact with parts of my family over genuine fear of my life over those pronouns. So we'll on that a little bit. That is not my intended question. My question is intended for Mr. Lofgren and Mr. Grugenhagen. Am I saying those names correctly?
Mr. Greenhagen's not here though.
He's not here though. Interesting.
He's at another forum.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, the Iowa State Constitution identifies sexual orientation and gender identity as protected classes. Certain representatives up here have shown that they're willing to violate and degrade. There are protections under the Constitution by, for example, proposing House Files 7, 8, and 9. If you need a reminder on what you wrote, I have it here. Proposing an amendment to take away marriage equality, ban children from participating in sports on basis of gender identity, to give a few examples. Specifically for Mr. Lofgren.
Are any of those my bills?
None of those are your bills. So my question for you is, what are you doing as an individual or in a relationship with other members of your party who supposedly oppose these bills to ensure the rights of all Iowans aren't eroded and stolen by a handful of hateful reactionaries? Thank you.
Well, what happens is we're all on different committees, and
Sure.
so I'm not on those committees. And so once we got through the first funnel where you had to be through committee, and I think a lot of those have died that they're talking about.
Not currently.
No,
Not
I'm pretty
according to the Iowa Legislative Bill Tracker.
Yeah, and you would have, this just happened within like a day ago. So I would say this is that sometimes we don't get too fired up about anything until it comes to our desk, because what happens is we all these committees that we're on, and so that's kind of how the process works.
Good deal. Quick follow-up.
You have about 10 seconds for a follow-up.
Fine. If those bills are dead, what bills are you proposing to strengthen rights?
I think what we're focused on right now is strengthening the rights of parents, because there's some people who are trying to ice them out, and I would never apologize for that.
Next individual, please, and don't forget to state your name.
Hi, I'm Catherine Hahn, and I just want to let you guys know that this is my opinions and mine as a professional working in the field of disabilities for 27 years, and not the organizations that I necessarily work for, just to make that totally clear. Parent Choice, Mark and Mark, I wrote you about Parent Choice very quickly, just to say that people who have kids with disabilities do not have Parent Choice. There is not a private school in the state of Iowa that will take them. They, in 27 years, I've not had any of the kids with significant disabilities that I work with ever be accepted by a private school. So Taylor, when you talk about Parent Choice is not just a parent having, I mean, I am a parent, I have a choice. I would have loved to see my son have different opportunities. I like the fact that my daughter had, you know, diversity in culture. We sent her overseas for a year for that very reason. So Parent Choice is not just one viewpoint. I guess I'll put on that one. But my real question is this. I have a huge concern with the kids that I work with that we can't get the things that we need for those kids. When Iowa went to state Medicaid, or state Medicaid went to the MCOs, it was supposed to make the system better. It's pretty much destroyed the system, having had a son with a disability for 32 years before I lost him. I can tell you from both sides of the story, we've lost our ability to control things with the MCOs. I currently am trying to get a student a chair that has been in a chair since they were 4. In October, I filed for repairs and growth. It was denied. It said it wasn't medically necessary. Now, how do you tell me a kid who's been in a wheelchair since they were 4 can no longer get a bigger wheelchair to meet their needs? I don't know. So I took their denial, and then they said, we see you have a problem though, and so they gave a denial, and they said, write for a new chair. We wrote for a new chair. That new chair has currently been denied. They denied the wheels. They denied the length, the extension tube to grow the thing in length. And they denied the transit brackets so that it can be used on a school bus. It is law in the state of Iowa that a wheelchair has to have transit brackets, but the MCOs are routinely denying those things. Everything
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. That's
Yep.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, please respond.
I agree with you. That is ridiculous. So, and with those kind of situations, that's where you probably should just give it to us, and
Okay.
we can forward it on to, Kelly Garcia or somebody on it.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Anyone else? Thank you. Next question.
All right. Thank you, Nathan. Good morning, everybody. Peggy Gordon. I'm here not usually as a private person speaking about dogs, but this time I want to speak about city funding because there's been a lot of activity around that. So I'm going to throw you a softball specifically about Senate Bill SF 489, the automated traffic enforcement. We're going to take one of the easier bills. The recent change is asking for a 10%, I don't know if it's a fee, a rebate, or tax contribution back to the public road use fund from the 9 cities that use ATEs, Muscatine being one of them. And our funding, which is about $500,000 a year, actually goes into our police fund. So it funds public safety as it should. If we had to fund 10% back, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a Tahoe, it's a police cruiser. So because of this change, and we're on the lower end, we have to then juggle our priorities and resources and go, how are we going to make sure our police are fully funded, and where do we take that from? Is it from quality of life? Is it from other processes? And we don't want to do that. We work, as Mark, Senator Lofgren, and Representative Cisneros, you guys, thank you for coming to our budget hearing. You hear about what we do, and our staffing works very hard at keeping Muscatine budget balanced and very, very healthy. So I'm asking you, basically, my ask to you is, how do you plan to vote?
Well, I've never liked traffic cameras, I'll tell you that right now. So,
I don't either, but I pay them.
Yeah. But I will say, here's the thing. There's a lot of legislators that would really like to ban them completely. And really what this bill you're talking about is really the compromise. So I mean, and yeah, I think the 10% thing, I think there's still conversation about that. I don't know. I mean, I know that's in ours. I don't know if it's over in the houses or not. But I would, and I don't know. I think it's still fluid, that bill. I mean, really. I mean, so, but we'll have to see what happens. But like I said, that's a compromise. And I mean, I guess in a way, there's a lot of people just happy that we're trying to work through this thing and not just get rid of them.
Good morning, Penny. I'll just add that I as well have been against traffic cameras since the first time I heard about it. and even after I got a ticket from it. But I don't think I've come across this bill on the House side, so I'll look into it. I would prefer just to get rid of them. If that is a possibility, that's where I would vote.
Well, luckily, only 9 cities in the state of Iowa use this as part of their enforcement. So it's not the majority of cities. And like I said, we've used them for many years, and the Iowa State Supreme Court even backed us. So I appreciate that. I do pay mine regularly. Cedar Rapids loves me, and I fund it, I'm sure, about a mile. But I want to remind you of one thing. This is just one example.
Real quick, please.
Is all of the bills that impact the city calculations have unintended consequences. Something else has to give. But I thank you for your time, and thanks for coming to our budget hearings. That's very important.
Next speaker, please.
All right, hello. There we go. So my name is Zach Spearstead, and I would just like to ask some questions about House File 180. So just to give a little bit of a background, I am a biology educator, or just an overall science educator. I teach like chemistry stuff, environmental science, stuff like that. So I've noticed that often in the media, whether we're talking about state governments or federal governments, that a lot of these policies and bills and whatnot, they are horribly misinformed, and it's evident that had people went and talked to the scientists, that their bills would have been much more comprehensive, much more well-informed. But that does relate to sex and people's general misunderstanding of the genetic basis of sex, with my background being in genetics. But as it relates to House File 180, there's 4 points that educators are not allowed to do. Facilitating and accommodating that is intended to affirm a student's gender identity, encouraging or coercing a student to withhold information from their parents, willfully withholding information from parents, or encouraging to undergo any medical procedure, so on and so forth. So my question to you all is, how are students supposed to get good advice in these kind of situations, like you said, when they're experiencing like gender dysphoria, or if they are transgender or anything like that? And also, to put a little bit more context into this, I was a threatening email was sent out about me this last winter semester, targeting me as a recipient of violence. And part of that may have been due to the fact that I am also an openly gay educator. You know, Louisa Muscatine High School, they had an incident last year or the year before where there was a Snapchat group where people were saying, kill all black people, kill all gay people. So with all this being said, knowing that schools are kind of an unsafe situation, or an unsafe place right now for people of the LGBTQIA+ community and people of color, how do you plan on protecting these students and faculty members?
Thank you, Zach, for the question. The letters of the alphabet you just referenced.
Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, asexual, plus.
Right,
Yes.
plus. Plus. Does the plus include MAP?
No.
Okay, I've heard that it does. So that's a concern.
But you can go on and
for many
address
people.
my
That's a
question,
concern,
sure.
so.
How are you going to keep people safe?
If you don't know what MAP is, that's minor attractive persons.
Excuse me. This is a forum. If you have another question, please get in line.
Not a question.
So minor attractive persons is a very
Okay, but how are you going to
secular
keep the LGBTQIA? How are you going to keep trans children safe? How are you going to keep gays?
I'll answer your question.
He's going to answer.
Minor attractive persons is a secular way of saying pedophile. Is that correct, sir?
This is not about pedophilia.
Folks,
I'm just
please,
asking for
we can
clarification.
disagree without being disagreeable. I'm going to ask everyone to keep calm, please.
Schools have people responsible for them, so I don't see what exactly you're talking about. Has anybody threatened you? There's law enforcement to take care of those kinds of things.
Taylor's working on resource officers. That's one of those bills that he cares about that would be very helpful.
I want all students to feel safe and welcome, including our faculty and staff. I mean, we're not trying to single out anybody here. We're trying to make sure that school districts, and there's very few that are even doing this, are not icing out parents. So what you stated just simply isn't true.
What about abusive parents?
Then the teachers are mandatory reporters, and they need to report that.
So, first of all, if you had someone threaten you, that's inexcusable, and I hope that you report it to law enforcement. But I have not had any instances in House District 82 where people have reported that, because I would have told them, go to law enforcement. People like that would dare to threaten you need to be arrested, period. Okay. Well, all I'm saying is we as legislators cannot take care of crimes that are alleged to be performed against you. That's a law enforcement thing, and people that would make any sort of threats against you need to be arrested and put in jail.
Thank you. And next speaker?
I apologize if I'm speaking a little loud or anything like that. I've been on the microphone like 3 times. My name is Scott Wag, Muscatine, Iowa. This is with regard to HJR 8 specifically, so Representative Cisneros.
Could you lean in a little bit closer?
Whoops, sorry. Is this
Thank you.
better? Does that
That's
take
much
away my
better.
time?
Thank you very
much. I feel that HJR 8 is actually in violation of the 14th Amendment. It's a removal of human rights, and this does not follow within the values stated in the preamble of the Declaration of Independence. We really, as a people, we cannot allow ourselves to be governed by those who seek limits in our pursuit of happiness, whether it's our own or others, based solely on the dogmatic law of another person's religion. And that's exactly what this is. I understand that following one's religion in their personal life is a great way to direct themselves. However, in public life, it should not be, especially when making amendments to our Constitution in the state of Iowa. To be clear, I don't believe that any minor should be subject to a surgery that is life-altering before they themselves are fully developed and are able to decide on their own. That's a separate topic. So any response, I would appreciate it only being solely to HJR 8. Who am I? I'm not just, I'm a disabled American veteran. I served in Afghanistan. I'm socially liberal and fiscally conservative. I'm heterosexual. I'm married. I'm a father. I'm a registered voter that votes in the state of Iowa, in your district. I don't understand how you can apply your religious beliefs and expect the state of Iowa, the citizens of Iowa, to live under dogmatic law that may or may not be their own. And that's exactly what this is. There's a reason why our Constitution doesn't define biological man, biological woman. There's no reason why the state should ever define marriage. It should be between two individuals. Well, okay, I shouldn't even say that. It should be between individuals that love each other, that are decent to each other. It shouldn't matter whether or not they're man, woman. And also, 5 seconds, okay, well, hey, you know what? A trans male, trans female, biological woman, biological man can still get married under this HJR 8. It makes no sense. You fail at bigoting. And I'd like to know why or how.
Thank you, sir.
No? Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, by the way.
Thank you for your question. What he's referring to are 2 pieces of language that ICO sponsored. In fact, there was 8 of us who sponsored 2 of these bills, which is religious liberty and state sovereignty. That's HR 508, in case somebody wants to look that up afterwards. And the other he referenced was HJR 8. Let me first explain the religious liberty and state sovereignty. That's not to redefine marriage. It is simply to reset what marriage is. So in that definition is between biological male and biological female.
For you.
Exactly.
Right. And I'll get to the other part of your question. So it's not to force anybody to stop living the lifestyle you choose to live. That's not what the bill is about. In fact, for people who, if this is that the government should have something to do with marriage, well, I would agree it doesn't. But when it was convenient for you and your organizations, that's where you took it. So we're simply saying we're going to bring back the conversation to establish it is between a man and a woman. It's not really that complicated. We're not trying to take anybody's civil rights or any public benefits to anyone. And so we're hoping that this conversation gets started. 5 of the 8 who co-sponsored this are freshmen. And so that is, I think, a good sign that people are willing to take up this issue again. I guess I'll run out of time. I'll talk more about it after.
We've had a couple of questions today regarding the LGBTQ community. We've been told not to be, I wrote it down, not to be divisive, not to be hateful, and not to be bigots, as we were called hateful, divisive, and bigots. I don't hear anybody calling me hateful, divisive, or a bigot for passing the gay panic defense bill unanimously last year. I don't hear anybody calling me a bigot or divisive or hateful when we increase funding to the LGBTQ outreach at the University of Iowa. I don't hear anybody call us hateful or bigots when I defended several constituents in front of the Civil Rights Commission. So my best piece of advice, if you want to build bridges, is not to portray at forums towards people what exactly it is that you're trying to prevent happening to yourself as well.
Anyone else have a response? Any others? Okay, next speaker, please.
Good morning. Timothy Nelson, Muscatine, Iowa. I would like to know where we stand on hands-free driving in the state of Iowa. I'm a retired truck driver, and now I've always preferred to ride a bicycle to get from point A to point B. Mark, Mr. Cisneros, and I probably share something in that in my career, I see what happens in cars when I'm driving a truck. And I guess people should know that when they pick that phone up, they are breaking the law. So where do we stand on that legislation?
Well, I've been working that for about 5 years now. So, and we've had it through transportation a few different times, through Ways and Means a few different times, unanimously. And I've gone around and kind of surveyed everybody, and we've had the votes the whole time. And I think there's always maybe like one person in leadership that doesn't like it. They won't tell you that, they won't like it. And so what you hear sometimes is that I don't like the bill, but I won't stop it. That's keyword for I'll stop it. And so we have that happens. So, but I will say it feels better this time. It feels like that there's some people that were against it before or for it. I did see an article just yesterday that kind of questioned. They said it's out of funnel, but it's probably not going to happen, that type of thing. So I hope everybody can contact other legislators and tell them how important it really is. I've been a runner since I was like 3rd grade or 4th grade or something. And so being out running, what I've kind of noticed is that 20 years ago, you'd run and cars would go by and they seemed like they knew what they were doing, but see, people are very distracted now. So I always kid about this. I said, well, I'm kind of a cousin to the cyclist being a runner. And it's just dangerous out there. If you're a pedestrian, it's just dangerous out there. And is hands-free perfect? No, it's not, but it is better. Anybody knows, I've got hands-free in my car, and anybody knows, messing around with the phone and everything, I mean, that's not safe. And unfortunately, there's been some really bad accidents that happened. We've had accidents, in our community from distracted drivers and everything too. And so in Des Moines, we've had a lot of families and victims that have come up, and they've talked to some of the legislators and told their stories and everything, which is very powerful. So again, I hope we can get it done, and I know the House is trying to. It's kind of cat and mouse kind of thing. They'll say, well, the House will say, well, if you guys do it, we'll do it, and we do the same thing. So anyway, I hope all the legislators here will try to do what they can do to help us get that through.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Anyone else on that question? Okay.
I'll just add real quick on that question. I think one of the hesitancies from the legislators was having your phone taken from law enforcement during a stop. So I think that was one of the reasons in the past, but I think they cleared that up in the language point. So I think it has a better chance of moving.
Anyone else? Dennis or Dan in the front row, could I conscript you guys into helping with the hand signals that the folks can't see? So, thank you, I appreciate that very much. Our next speaker, please.
My name is Mark Wyatt. I'm interested in Senate File 16 and House File 422. Both of those create a standard penalty for fatal traffic crashes. This is an issue that was sponsored by Senator Lofgren, but the original idea came from Representative Kaufman several years ago, and so I'm interested in your positions on that.
So, yeah, so Senate File 16 is my bill that I put in. And so then again, I'm happy, I'm on transportation now, so I can work on these bills. So before I just had put different bills in and then let other people do it. So what happens now, right now, if you were to swerve and hit a bicyclist, what happens is if you didn't really injure them real bad, you may be fined like $325 if you broke the law. So then if you were to really hurt them seriously, it'd be $325. If you were to kill them, it'd be $325. Well, that's different. That's different than if you hit a pedestrian or you hit another vehicle. That would be there's accelerated type of penalties that you have. So all we're really trying to do is kind of be consistent and understand that any bicyclist is just as important as another pedestrian or another vehicle.
Mark, I'm looking forward to finally getting one of those two done this year. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Yes, I'm Dan Clark. Taylor, I think you're the only one up there I haven't got acquainted with. Welcome to Muscatine. I think many people know, I'm going to assume everyone in the room knows who Iowa's equal rights champion Alexander Clark was. Muscatine was his home for half a century. I am a member of the board of the Alexander Clark Foundation. I speak only for myself this morning, but our primary goal is preserving the house Alexander Clark built in 1878. It's on the National Register. It was a U.S. bicentennial project in 1976, but we've learned that the federal government thinks it has only state-level significance. So we've hired a consultant. We're in the process of an upgrade to national-level significance. That shouldn't be a problem. We are now 2 years out, or 3 years out, sorry, from Alexander Clark's 200th birthday. That's my personal goal for going to the next level, which is much more prestigious and elite. National Historic Landmark. It's something that everybody seems to speak well of. Legislators have honored Alexander Clark from time to time in Black History Month. You know, it's a wonderful thing. But if you dig into the history, and you will discover that not only was he the champion of our 1868 constitutional amendment getting rid of the word white, but he was ahead of his time in advocating equal rights for women. You probably all know that 1868 Clark versus Muscatine Board of Directors was one of the precedents for the, whatever it's called, Barnum, the gay rights thing that some of you want to overturn now with a constitutional amendment. Fortunately, the constitutional amendment process is long, and I'll be doing all I can in the next couple of years, if that thing goes forward at all, to do education the other way, including bringing Nicole Hannah-Jones, the Waterloo, Iowa native, who's at the center of the 1619 project. I heard Mark Cisneros mention CRT in passing. As
Real quick.
We all know what that is, and we need a lot of education on that score.
Thank you, David. Gentlemen, does anyone care to respond to that?
Daniel, is there a question?
Well, I think I pointed at Mark. If we toss off CRT as though we know what that is, and it's something woke and bad and scary and we ought to get rid of it, make the white kids feel bad or something. No.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I didn't catch that question either. But CRT, for those of you who are not familiar, is critical race theory. And basically, from what I see here, there would be a lot of white privilege. In fact, you're all very oppressive to me. Does that make any sense?
No.
Well, yeah, that's.
There is a lot of white privilege in this room. That's true.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Is there?
Yes.
Well, the point, if you let me answer the question, what parents are concerned about is that their children are being taught racism. Whether you agree with it or not, the parents see that in the curriculum.
That's why we need education.
Okay. Let him
So,
answer, please.
Critical race theory is something we dealt with last year, and I think somebody here might be able to talk in a little more detail about it. But basically, you're not supposed to be teaching kids that. I don't think it's right for a child to look at your skin color and assume that you are bad. Assume that you hate people of my skin color. Should I assume that? That is what children are being taught, sir.
Where?
Muscatine.
Ames, Iowa, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't up for debate. I'm not asking questions. I'm telling you the curriculum that I read at a government oversight hearing. This isn't up for interpretation or your feelings. The facts of the matter are this. I held that you can shake your head all you like. I'm going to repeat the facts that are not up for interpretation. At Ames High School, in a curriculum that I read out loud in public, it said, and I quote, "If you believe that you should show an ID to vote, you're a white supremacist." That's garbage. I'm not done, Dan. You had your time, now it's mine. It's garbage, and it's racist. When I was passing the election integrity bill, which, by the way, I must be the worst voter suppressionist in the history of the world, because after each bill, voter participation goes up. I was told that somehow, if we change our voting laws, and by change I mean strengthen, that depending on the color of your skin, that's going to be based on whether you can understand it or not. That in of itself is racist, that the color of your skin is somehow going to dictate whether you're able to understand election laws or not. So I recommend for all of you that don't like the temperature of the State House to bring down the temperature of your rhetoric as well.
I don't know about you guys, but I wish we could just teach reading, writing, or arithmetic.
And you know, that's really all we have time for.
Okay. Next speaker, any further comments from the gentleman? Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Lauren Klebanowski. I have two comments quickly, and then I do have a question. And actually, it was a great lead-in with what you just said. You want to only teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. But we all know that if you do not teach history, we are doomed to repeat ourselves. And we need to look back and understand that even the education I received in this country, there was a lot missing, there was a lot glossed over. I did not get a fair representation of what truly happened. And as I got older and I got to college, which several now states, including our own, are trying to go at the college level as well, I was able to take a history class where we read both secondary sources, which means it was written by people who are after the fact, who are writing about previous, and also primary sources, written by people who were living in the times. And I'm not going to get both my comments, I guess I'll get back in line. But being able to read what truly happened, it disgusted me to find out I had missed so much. I lost respect for people around me. I lost respect for adults for not helping me understand so that I could care about the people. I grew up near Chicago, I believed that racism was dead because we were all so kind to each other. It wasn't there. It wasn't until I got to college to find out that people were still burning crosses in lawns in the United States, in southern states. In 2011, there was imagery of Obama being hung next to one of my very good friends in Kansas during his electoral period. Those aren't taught in school. I'll end there with my comment.
So I fully support the complete and total teaching of history in all forms. I would just hope that it's taught the way that I was taught here at Muscatine Community College by all the wonderful teachers here. Because I was both sides of an issue and then permitted to think for myself. And that's not what always happens. Hence, if you believe that you need to show an ID to vote, you're a white supremacist. So I just would ask that everyone that wishes that everything gets taught equally, make sure that everything gets taught equally. And as much as I absolutely condemn the abhorrent ways that people, that you alluded to as President Obama, I would hope that you also criticize Hollywood, who held up bloody heads of President Trump, and be equally outraged about that as well.
Anyone else? Next speaker, please.
My name is Kent Ferris. I've got two bills for Representative Cisneros' consideration. First being House File 96, which deals with non-medical switching on decisions by insurance companies to discontinue coverage of a certain drug for reasons unrelated to health and sometimes against doctor's advice. So I would ask for you to oppose House File 96. Second, I would ask for you to support House File 101. That would add the mental health emergency phone number and text number to the back of all public students' ID cards. And then finally, I would ask for careful consideration from all that represent us for adequate public funding for mandated services like mobile crises services, and to make sure that all law enforcement officers are trained in crisis intervention.
Thank you, Ken. I will definitely look into those bills a little further. And if you would please send me contact information, in fact, if you can, before you go, so I can get back to you on that.
Yes, House File 101, I think it was, the suicide prevention hotline on the back of those ID cards, that did make it out of the Education Committee this week. So I'm very hopeful we'll get that out on the floor very quickly. I appreciate your efforts on that.
Excellent question. Agree with you on all three fronts.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Angie Lewis. I'm actually here in both frames. One is as a council member from Muscatine. Have one concern is as you're looking through some of the bills that are passing or coming through, please be
Angie,
aware.
could you move in a little bit closer? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm not only short, but I don't talk very well apparently, so that's okay. As you know, as some of the bills that are going through, you're looking at taking our redistributing money that the cities are using, that we have as far as incomes for each of the cities. And please be aware that when you're looking at redistributing, those are monies that we use here in town to support our, our officers, the way that we're finally getting our streets fixed here in town. That money gets, if you take that money away from us, that's money that here in the community we're not being able to use. And if each of you want to talk to me about that, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. I'll let you answer that one. I do have another question.
Well,
go ahead.
I might just mention, as far as taking money away from officers, that was kind of out there. And in fact, these cities were having people go up the Capitol and all that. What we found out later, that was a bunch of baloney. And so I know Representative Kaufman knows a lot about what you're talking about. Most of this has to do with the property tax bill.
Yes, it does.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So thank you for the question. And I have been meeting weekly with the League of Cities, with the League of Counties, and with different people that represent the cities and the counties. And I've made this offer to them, and I'll make the offer to you. As we try to achieve a goal of making sure that people can continue to afford to be in their homes, I actually want to be proactive in helping cities. There's several pieces of legislation that have been proposed on bonding limits, on when votes are triggered, on different levy caps, and being able to free up some dollars. And so the challenge I've issued to them is that I am an open door for anything we can do to be helpful, and I appreciate the question.
Thank you. My next...
You've got about a minute left of time, Angie.
Okay. I won't take that long. As you know, most of you know, I'm a nurse by trade. I am very concerned, and this is a statewide issue, regarding EMS providers and being able to provide that to especially the rural areas. We are very fortunate here in Muscatine. We have EMS, and you call 911 and they're there. I don't care if it's the police or whomever. Their turnaround times are phenomenal. Not that way throughout the whole state. I know I have had people that live out in, I hate to say this, Podunk, Iowa, out in the middle of nowhere, rural Iowa, that their providers basically come and pick them up, and they're just basic ALS. They put them in the vehicle, have to go halfway, and then transfer them so that they can have a paramedic. So I really encourage you all to look at having maybe paramedics be a mandatory in all areas, because healthcare should be the same no matter where you're at in Iowa.
You give me a layup, Angie, so I appreciate the question. 2 years ago, we were able to finally pass EMS as essential service, and now it needs strengthened up significantly. For just a quick tutorial, when cities and counties were originally founded, police and fire were required, shall be provided, and EMS was a may be provided. So EMS was always the last bite of the apple. And we finally did pass the essential service bill 2 years ago. What we found, for instance, in Cedar County, is as the working group was put together and there was a $4 million price tag, the current levying limitations limited that to $1 million. So part of what I will be doing with the property tax bill is increasing that dramatically. EMS should be fully accessible and an essential service to anyone in rural Iowa that needs it.
I agree. Thank you for your time.
At this point, I'll say we do have about 10 minutes left in the allotted time, so we may or may not be able to get to all the questions. Just if we're not able to, ask that you please understand. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Ellen Field. I'm the third grader at St. Mary Matthias, and I am Brownie at Girl Scout. Recently, I wrote to the Governor Reynolds about corn being the state grain of Iowa and watermelon being the state fruit. I got to no response. Would it be possible for these items for the legislators to take it up? Many of our neighboring states have corn as their state grain, and they do not produce as many as we do. Thank you.
Well, Ellen, first of all, thank you for coming today. You speak more eloquently than half the legislators in the Capitol. So thank you for being here, and I will definitely work on that for you.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for your question. I'll make sure I'll get that to Governor Reynolds herself.
I'll also talk to Chris Kramer from Cultural Affairs too and talk up with her about that.
Alan, thank you for the question. I think between the four of us, we'll be able to put our names to a message to the governor's office for you.
Thank you, Ed. Next speaker, please.
I was just there to organize her notes, but I'm here for a different question. My name is Eric Field, and I'm a doctoral student in school psychology at University of Iowa. And I've seen a lot from both sides. In fact, what I'm being trained in with school psychology is not only mental health counseling, but also special education, assessment, as well as consultation, behavior plans, consulting with parents, consulting with teachers, system-wide interventions. And I know that there's been a lot of talk today, and I'd just like to hear from each member of the panel. I do know that there are a lot of issues on both sides. I know that as a school psychologist, one of my responsibilities is to be affirming, especially for our gender diverse, racially diverse. Also at the same time with abiding by the law, and I do believe that there are a lot of rationales that are coming through. I can even speak with CRT that the first time it was brought up was my second year in graduate school, and it did help me to understand some of the problems that school psychologists did with assessment. However, I do think that the way that it was being taught in the schools was very much different and a very oversimplified version from what I was learning in graduate school, so I can have that defense. So the one thing that I do want to ask all four speakers is, how would I, as a school psychologist, as an educator, what would be the best way for me, and how would you advise me going forward as someone who needs to focus and affirm the students that I'm working with, while still making sure that I'm giving a good education to the stakeholders, to make sure that I am affirming for the parents? How do I work as a negotiator for everybody involved as a school psychologist?
Thank you, Mr. Field. The question, that's a very good question. You covered a couple of things. Affirming. That's a word that we're using in some of the legislative language to deal with what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, I wrote it down here somewhere. When we're talking about the education of children, one of the issues that's come up is grooming. And when we are affirming, that's another word for grooming in much of the conversations that we're having. And these complaints are coming from the parents. Again, we're looking at curriculum for the first time in the last 2 years. And these are the questions and concerns that they've brought to us. So you and others are in a tough spot in the medical field on the affirming part. Right now there's a lawsuit in New York a parent is suing a school and teacher for grooming their child and starting him on the course of mutilation and changing their biological gender. So those are the dangers of affirming that we see in the legislature. I'll stop because I just got them.
No, you have 30 seconds left. I'm sorry, my signals aren't very good.
So that's when I hear that, Eric, it might not be your question exactly, but when I hear that word, that's the word that we're discussing in the Capitol, and that's how we see that.
Hang on, ma'am, if you'd like to ask a question, you can get in line.
I was on education for quite a few years and everything. I wish I was still on there because there's a lot of the issues like you're talking about here I'd like to be in the middle of, but I'm not really currently in the middle. But you brought up so many things, I think I just need to have a little longer conversation with you at a later date.
There's a lot to unpack there, but I think that everybody has to be at the table. The parents, the school psychologists, everybody just needs to be at the table to help support that student.
I've got a pretty simplistic answer, and I think you've seen you're coming up with someone that would do this, and that is just be fair and follow the law. It's that simple for me.
And that's definitely something I would do. I would definitely go back to what Representative Cisneros said about affirming equal grooming. And I'd say that while I can't speak for every single educator, I do know that there are a lot of educators, a lot of school psychologists who would make sure that the two are not equal.
Thank you, Mr. Field. That's time, thank you. Okay, folks, we're under 5 minutes, so we probably will get pinched a little bit, but I'd ask the next speaker to go.
Hi, my name is Jen Metcalf. I'm a Muscatine resident. I'm a parent of 4. I don't want to speak on an individual bill. I just kind of want to speak on a trend.
Jen, can you move forward a little bit?
Sorry, is that better? Okay, I don't want to speak on an individual bill, but just kind of comment and get your opinion on the trend I'm seeing in these questions, especially as you're focused on being an advocate for parents and for parents within the laws you're currently writing. So as parents wrestle with staying in Muscatine or Iowa, I'm somebody who has lived, I grew up in Iowa, I moved away. When I made the decision to have kids, I came back to Iowa because it was a great place to raise kids. And as, I'm not sure how much you guys are noticing people who are seriously contemplating moving back out of the state because of what is happening here. You know, especially kids with disabilities and getting what they need, transgender kids, having our kids feel safe based on who they can marry, gun safety, you know, watching my 11-year-old beg us not to send his 8-year-old to school here in Muscatine because he doesn't know if he can get to his class to protect her, for instance. All of these things are questions we're running into. And so for each of you, I ask, and Bob, please be nice. Can you understand why some parents are really struggling right now with keeping their kids in Iowa with legislation like that?
Anyway, I want to mention that with the last census, Illinois lost 80-some thousand people, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's just crazy, you know, and Iowa did fairly well. And then I think I read the other day, it's like they lost 280,000 people in like 2 years now. I mean, it's got, Illinois is losing, and actually Iowa has actually done fairly well, so I don't really think that's the case.
Jen, thank you for the question. I'll be nice. I think people are really looking at Iowa in a very different way, especially after the last 2 years. If we're looking at just the fact that we can pay our bills in Iowa, and if you look across the river, they're in bad shape. They're in big debt. And so that allows us in the state legislature to make some really confident decisions. And so I think the people, in fact, I have family in California. They're looking to move to a place like Iowa. It's just the winters that scare them. But this is a much better place to raise a family than many of the states around us. And we're committed to trying to make it a better place, to make it a place that people want to come to live long term.
The only thing I would say is my district borders the entire, it goes all the way up and down the river. The only thing I experience is folks from Illinois moving into my district, so I don't quite see that.
Well, thank you for the question, Jen. You don't have to ask me to be nice. I certainly treat people how they treat me. So that's my doctrine. You're very nice, so thank you for being here and thank you for the question. I just want to echo what everyone else said. People are fleeing states that would have a left-leaning doctrine in a much more significant fashion than they're fleeing conservative states. As far as what I would do with concerned parents, I listen all the time. I meet with folks, I have them at the Capitol. I listed off 3 questions ago all the different things that I have done for people of that community, yet still people show up and call me a hateful bigot, so I would just say be nice as well for those that are asking those questions.
Thank you very much, everybody. By my clock, we've reached 10 o'clock. I'd like to thank all of you who have come out to question and speak with your legislators. I'd like to thank all the legislators who were able to show today. It's not always pleasant and it's not always easy to live in a democratic republic, but it does require that we all be engaged. And I just applaud each and every one who is here for being engaged in that way. You make this a better place to live. So thank you very much. Thank you again for the legislators, and this concludes the forum.